Are my children going to develop type 1 diabetes because I have type 1 diabetes? I have been wondering this since before I even decided to have babies as a woman with type 1. In fact, that really was one of the big reasons I didn't think I ever wanted to have kids as a woman with type 1. But I will give credit to my now ex-husband. I did say to him at one point, but hey, what if our children develop type 1? And you know what he said? He said, well, you have diabetes and I'm glad that you're here, but still, it's something we all wonder. What is my child's risk of developing type 1 diabetes? In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the statistics that they have figured out maybe sort of determines kind of your risk of your child having type 1 diabetes based on your diabetes. But I'm also going to show you the actual process of my kids getting screened for the earliest stages of type 1 diabetes based on autoantibodies. Autoantibodies, by the way, show up years before you actually need daily insulin therapy with injections or a pump. So you can actually have your children or anyone in your family of any age tested for autoantibodies that indicate the earlier stages of your immune system attacking and destroying the cells in your pancreas that produce insulin. What's the point of catching this early? Well, there's a few things. First, preventing diabetic ketoacidosis at diagnosis. We know that has a big impact on a child's development, on their brain health, even on the future of their diabetes management. Secondly, obviously their safety and their well-being. But third, and this honestly to me is the most important, if you spot type 1 diabetes in stage 1 or stage 2, it means you have time to potentially take advantage of some of the incredible clinical trials that are happening right now using therapies that aim to delay or hopefully someday prevent the full onset of type 1 diabetes in your child. That means if my child did test positive for type 1 diabetes autoantibodies, but their blood sugar levels were still relatively normal at this time, they would be in stage 1 or stage 2. Then I could enroll them, hopefully, in one of these clinical trials. They could get this therapy, and then at the very least, it could delay when they need to start daily insulin. And, fingers crossed, this is what they're really aiming for, is that you just eventually totally prevent the need for daily insulin therapy. But you can only take advantage of those clinical trials if you are screening your children for autoantibodies. You can't really wait until they're already diagnosed because, there are some clinical trials that will accept children who have been diagnosed in the last 6 months. But you want to be ready for this. You want to have a heads up, Let's talk about the statistics. In the book, Pregnancy with Type 1 Diabetes, written by yours truly and my fellow author, Jennifer Smith, we explain some of the research that they have put together to determine your child's risk of developing type 1 based on your diabetes. Get this. Here's what it looks like. All right, these stats are all from the Joslin Diabetes Center. If you or your partner has type 1 diabetes, your child's risk of developing type 1 is actually 10 to maybe 20 times higher than a child whose parents do not have type 1. If one child in the family already has type 1 diabetes, their siblings, your other children, have a 1 in 10 chance of developing type 1 before age 50. But get this. If it's the father who has type 1 diabetes, your child's risk of developing type 1 is actually much higher than if it's the mother who has type 1 diabetes. Men tend to pass type 1 on to their children more than women. Okay, so this stat is kind of weird and kind of cool. If you are a mother with type 1 diabetes and your child is born before you are 25 years old, your child has a higher risk of developing type 1 compared to if you're a mother with type 1 and your child is born after you are 25 years old. For some reason, if you are over the age of 25, your child's risk of developing type 1 is just about as the same as the general population. That's kind of weird, but this is what they have figured out just based on studying stuff for decades. Another weird one, if your diabetes was diagnosed before you turned 11 years old, your child's risk of developing type 1 is higher than if you were diagnosed with diabetes after 11 years old. Personally, I was diagnosed at 13 years old, and I didn't have my first child until I was 28. So those statistics and those facts serve me and my family well for, basically hoping that their risk of developing type 1 is relatively low. But here's the thing. My 10-year-old was just diagnosed with celiac disease. Celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. Type 1 diabetes and celiac disease, they are buddies. I have both. As soon as she was definitely diagnosed with celiac, the first thing that went through my head was, oh my gosh, she's got my autoimmune genes. How is she gonna develop celiac and not also develop type 1? It just seems inevitable. Now, I've already had my children screened for the autoantibodies of type 1 2 or 3 times before they were even 6 years old. But then this celiac diagnosis came up just this past summer, which makes me think, oh man, even though they say you can test early before 6 years old, and that means something for the rest of their life, I just thought maybe it was too early. Maybe she is gonna test positive this time for T1D autoantibodies. And I prepared myself for the reality that it was gonna come back positive because it seems like impossible that it won't if she's already developing celiac disease. Anyway, we went to trialnet.org, signed up for the test kit, signed the stuff because it is technically a study that you're participating in when you take this test kit that they'll mail right to your house. And you have to find a lab. We went to LabCorp, and they are working with FedEx to make sure that the blood draw gets taken that day and sent right to the place it needs to go. I think it's Harvard. So it's a little tedious, I won't lie. Actually, finding a day when I could skip that much work and I could keep them out of summer camp or school, that's tedious. And then, of course, you're asking your child to cooperate for an intravenous blood draw, which nobody wants to have to do. My kids are champs, though, and they have been watching me manage diabetes for a long time. I don't believe in indulging self-pity. They know this. Let's buck up and do what we have to do. And honestly, that's what I did. I said, we've got to do this. It's for your health and your future and your safety. We're just going to get it done. So I waited for a day when they weren't in any summer camps, and we made it happen. Okay, ladies, was it really scary when you got your blood drawn for the antibody?
Yes.
It was really scary?
Well, not that much.
You were nervous about it?
A little. I was nervous that it'd kill me.
Okay, well, that's pretty dramatic. All right, did it hurt a lot?
Only a little. Like, I barely felt it.
We did something really important. We put on that numbing cream, and that made a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that took away all the tears. That took away all the crying and nervousness. Yeah, okay. And we had to be pretty patient. It took a long time. Yeah, it was pretty tedious. Okay. So, guess what? Your results came back and you are negative!
Yay! Say it.
Yes. We tested negative for T1D antibodies.
We tested negative for T1D antibodies.
Okay, so what does this really mean about their future with type 1? Stop that. Honestly, I'm always going to worry that they could still develop type 1. I don't feel like completely at peace. TrialNet only looks for 2 types of antibodies. The antibodies that are the most common in people who develop type 1. GAD and IAA. But there are 3 other types of autoantibodies that can be part of a type 1 diagnosis. If I wanted to get them tested for those other antibodies, I'd have to go through their pediatrician and do another blood draw. At the moment, I don't feel that that's necessary because this is like the 4th time I've had them screened for T1D antibodies and their blood sugars are normal. So I think we're good. I think we're gonna not worry about it for now. Okay?
Yeah.
So there you go. I really, really, really recommend to my fellow T1D parents, get your children screened for the autoantibodies of type 1 diabetes. But also, hey, talk to your brother, talk to your sister, get their children screened. Talk to your friends. Did you know that 90% of people who develop type 1 have no family history of this disease? And hey, if you're a parent who doesn't have type 1 diabetes, but one of your children does, you should also get yourself screened. I know several adults with type 1 who were diagnosed decades after their child. So there you go, get screened, trialnet.org, do it. Okay, today's a big day. I'm taking my kids to get their antibodies tested again. Auto antibodies. Okay, one thing we're gonna do to make this a little easier, because who wants to take their kid to get their blood drawn? Nobody. I got lidocaine cream, so this will help numb the area where they're gonna, do the little intravenous blood poke and pull out blood. All right, arm out, please. Okay, they both just had their blood drawn. They did so good. It was like, yeah? What do you think? How'd it go?
It was good, not painful. At the end, it was painful.
At the end?
Yeah, it was a little painful at the end.
So they had lidocaine cream on their arms for 2 hours, which makes a huge difference in how much they felt the intravenous blood draw. And then show them your bandages. Yeah, warrior bandages. It's worth it.